Oh, you better be quiet.
Microphones, everyone, please. All right, we welcome you to Cache County Council meeting. Today's Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. We welcome all of you here and all those who are joining us on YouTube. We welcome you also. We will have an opening by Councilman David Erickson.
She's got a prayer written for me.
No, I asked you if you had one.
No, I've got a couple little sayings. There's this little magazine that I get that's really, really good. I'd like to just share a couple little comments. One was actually a quote from Ronald Reagan. It says, "We don't have inflation because the people are living too well. We have inflation because the government is living too well."
Amen.
I think, amen for a lot of things. And then the other thing I think that's very interesting right now that we need to stay grounded is, especially right now, Franklin D. Roosevelt said, "We must especially beware of that small group of selfish men who would clip the wings of the American eagle in order to feather their own nest." And may we be aware of those things at all levels of government. And I'd like to finalize that with a word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're indeed grateful to be able to have gathered here at this time for this council meeting to represent Cache County. We're grateful for each other, grateful for the input that we have, the freedoms that we can do this under, and the minds and thoughts and abilities that we can share it this night. We pray for thy influence. We pray for thy influence to be upon all that will be thought about, that will be said, that will be done, that the best decision for the people and representing them and doing what's best for them will be ever in the forefront of our minds, thoughts, and ambitions. We pray that thou will bless us, that we will always think of those that we represent, that we will do what's best for them, and leave our own personal biases, that we will leave our own personal ambitions aside and represent those which we need to. We are grateful for the freedoms that we have and enjoy and those that have sacrificed for those freedoms. And we pray that they will be blessed, their families will be blessed, and that we will honor them always. We pray again for thee to be amongst everybody and the needs for this county, that we'll be blessed with moisture, that we'll be blessed with the things needed from day-to-day living, and that happiness will abound here in this valley. We're grateful for these things and do these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
And if we stand, we'll have our pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman David Erickson. Appreciate that. And before I go any further, there's a reminder that the council has been invited to a dinner at Willow Park by Lamont. It's the rodeo thing, and it starts at 7. So keep on track here.
1 hour and 56 minutes.
Okay, very good. All right. Has everyone had a chance to review and want to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. The approval of the minutes for July 26th. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Yes,
Madam
please.
Chair, I have several corrections to the minutes.
Okay.
The first two corrections on the work meeting that we had, as well as item 14, executive sessions, both of those, and I do not know who this was, need to include who made the motion, and the second to go into executive session, what the vote was, and then as well when we adjourned, the motion and the vote to adjourn from both of those. So we need to have those included. The second thing is on item 11B on the open space bond. We corrected that from 25,000 to 20,000.
21 million, yeah.
or what was it,
Million.
25 million, right?
Yeah.
I wrote 25,000, I know, sorry, thank you, 25 million to 20 million. That was not reflected in the minutes. And then also on item 10, this was where we were talking about the budget. The wrong motion is there. At 5630, I made a motion to approve only the 23 items listed in the account detail of Resolution 2022-17, which was the budget amendment, and excluding the struck items, and for the account detail to be included in the minutes as part of the minutes, and it's not there. That was seconded by Dave Erickson, and the vote was unanimous except for Paul opposed that. So I would move for those changes and that we find out who made those motions on the executive session.
Okay, very good. All right, so we need to have a correction to the approval of the minutes then. So are you,
Yeah, that's my motion to correct the minutes as I see.
Second that.
okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we correct the minutes as stated. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, we'll go on to our report from our county executive, Executive Zook.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just have two brief items for you this evening. You may have seen a letter to the editor about the fair in the newspaper. I have a copy of a response from Lane Parker, our fair manager, that was also signed by J.D. Gunnell, the SU Extension Director, and Blake Clark, the 4-H Coordinator. Just wanted to distribute a copy of that so you can see what the response was to that.
Thank you.
Just in summary, it was about concern from a resident about the decision that was made 2 years ago to discontinue one of the 4-H programs, and Lane gives a good explanation of why that decision was made by the Fair Committee a couple of years ago. And then just the last item I have for you this evening is just to express thanks on behalf of the county employees. I've heard many expressions of gratitude in relation to the premium payment that council approved last time. I just wanted to pass on those expressions of gratitude to the council. Thank you very much for your support of the employees. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Executive. All right.
Madam Chair, can
Yes.
I bring up something before we go
Sure.
on? And this is addressed to whoever puts our agenda out. I have some questions on it. I've noticed that it's changed in the past from what we've done. And it takes a lot longer for us as council members to go through the agenda the way it is. I don't understand why we have to have so many entries to cover the same point. I'm looking at Article 11B, and I want to point out something that I have a question on. This seems to be leading, and I would ask that the council has more information or more input on what goes into this agenda, because I just don't like the way it's put out. It takes a lot of time. And if we look at this 11B, if we go down to, whereas the Cache County Council has determined that it is both necessary and appropriate for the county to amend and implement this ordinance. We haven't even passed this yet. And here it is saying that. The other thing is we do not see a vote that came from the Planning Commission as to who voted nay and who voted yes. And I just think there ought to be some changes, and as a council, we have some opportunity to voice that and put that in. I don't know what they're called, the civil reviews. They come in, and then I got to go to something else in order to see what is there for the council to read, and it's not the same information and the same dialect that was put to the Planning Commission. And I think they ought to be exact, and we see what the Planning Commission sees, so that we can see how they vote, why they vote, and everything else along that line. And those are my concerns.
Nolan, I could not any more strongly second what you've said. I am absolutely aghast at what's been going on with this agenda setting. And I would appreciate it if the county attorney would look into that, because this agenda is the council's agenda, and we should control it completely, period. So I support you 100%.
Thank you. Because it's confusing. We're leading that when we say we necessary to approve. We haven't even heard it yet as a council.
Is this in the agenda, or is this in
It is in the agenda. It's 11B.
Yeah.
11B? I must not have the
and we left out how the planning commission votes. We should be able to see how they vote. We should read the exact same thing that the planning commission reads, so that we know what's going on, rather than this thing, and I've got to go out and search differently. It seems to be, it should be in the same containment, and I read what the planning commission reads. And it's just confusing, and I've spent lots more time the last few sessions going through this because it's changed, the format has changed, and I don't like it, personally. So that's my feelings. I don't see why we did it this way.
I should just make clear, we haven't taken the agenda yet.
There's no yet. You're not taking the agenda, period, just to be clear. It's the council's agenda.
Well, who put this civil stuff and everything in there? How come I'm not seeing the same thing as the planning commission? I don't,
I'm not seeing what you read on my copy of the agenda.
go to 11B, page 1.
It's on the
Oh,
packet,
so
Jonathan.
you're talking about the packet and not the agenda itself.
Well, it's in the agenda and stuff.
Talking about the ordinance.
Yes.
All of
Yeah,
this
11B,
agenda and ordinance.
yeah.
So why are we saying it's necessary and we say it's approved before we've even heard it? Yet we know what the planning commission did. And I don't get to see what the planning commission said.
I think that this question likely is best addressed to Development Services who prepared the ordinance. And I've not looked at this, so this is off the cuff. But when my office prepares an ordinance, we prepare the ordinance that may get passed. And then you may vote and not pass it. So my guess is, and I don't know what the Planning Commission's recommendation.
Well, it's not been presented this way prior. I mean, the last few times it has gone under this format. And it's not the same thing that the planning commission sees. And then the civic review, I have to go through 2 pages, and I really don't get much information from that, but yet I got to click on it and go through it when I can. If we went back to the way we were before, I had all of that in one spot. I could go through pages rather than go back to each shelf and see what's going on. It's just time consuming, and if we changed it, we should have had some say-so from the council as to how that was changed.
I've
To
been,
put it in layman's terms, because that's all I can understand, obviously, there's a lot of people trying to insert themselves between the rest of the county and this council. And that's a problem. We're getting things filtered, and we're not seeing what's actually happening,
And the-
period. That's in layman's terms.
And the law is clear that it's the council's agenda. And Barbara, as Tidwell, as the chair of the council, is to oversee that preparation of that agenda. And I've given a legal opinion that staff help on that, code assigns to the county clerk, but that's under the direction of the council. That's not to provide substance to the agenda. The substance of the agenda is ultimately decided by the council.
But did you see 11B? Is that not leading? If I sit and read that before I come to this council and it's necessary and common that we approve it? We haven't even heard it, so why did we put that language in there?
That's what I was getting at, that I haven't reviewed each of these zoning ordinances, but I would imagine that some, and I don't know who, but I would assume Development Services prepared an ordinance that is ready for if you decide to rezone.
But
That's
if
what
we
we would-
read it, it's already factored in my mind. I mean, I disagree with that.
No, and I think you have a great point, because I think when the public reads that, then they think that we're already predisposed to
Exactly.
make that decision, and that doesn't seem like we're being fair.
And I'm not seeing how the planning commission voted. Of course, I'm in the planning commission, but I want my other council members to see how it goes.
I'll look and see how it looked when it went to Planning Commission and how it looked when it came to you. And we have to give some
Well, I
advice
just hope as a
about-
council, we have a process and an input as to how this agenda looks, because we get this, and over the weekend, you're sitting there saying, good flip, what is all this stuff? I gotta go here, I gotta go here. I'd like it more concise.
And
What
that's
I-
something that
oh.
ought to be communication between the council to the chair and the chair to whoever's assisting in the preparation.
and I do have a question, because I have been getting all of these emails to approve these civic reviews. I haven't approved any of them because I don't agree with what's there. So I would like to know who's sending all of these civic reviews and why.
And why can't we attach them to the same stuff that the planning and zoning is meeting, so that I'm not here and then to here and then back to here to see what's going on?
Councilman O'Donnell, can I just ask a question to clarify, make sure I understand your concern? Previously, how was the planning commission decision communicated?
We saw exactly what the planning commission saw. The outline, the rules, everything else that they were reading and going through. The only thing that was inserted was how they voted. And then we got to see for that. Now, I don't see that. I don't see anything that the planning and zoning see. I see this ordinance review, which now comes out and says it's necessary for us to approve it.
Are you saying that previously you received the same staff, the council received the same staff report?
Absolutely.
So this staff report that's in here about that item,
Is something new in the past, what, 2 or 3 council meetings?
the staff report itself, or the format of it, or?
The civic review,
The civic review and then this ordinance thing. That's not the same thing the planning and zoning sits and reads.
right.
This staff report in here, that it's entitled Staff Report Martin Bench Rezone, and it has the, what is it?
It's ordinance number 2022-24, Cache County, Utah, Martin Bench rezone, an ordinance amending it. You go down, you get to the bottom, whereas the council has determined that is both necessary and appropriate.
So if you go a couple pages past that, there,
One more.
then you get to, then there's the actual ordinance. Do you see the ordinance?
But I'm led by the first part that was in there.
Okay, and then
And
if you go one
finally,
page,
there's the thing that I read,
is this the staff report that you're used to seeing?
Yes.
This one? Okay.
and I would just as soon that be there, and we take out the whereas, is that I'm necessary to approve this.
It wasn't buried in the footnotes before.
So are you
You play
saying,
games by burying stuff in the footnotes.
are you saying that you would prefer to just have the staff report?
I'm
not
questioning why the first part's in here now.
why the
Pages 1 through 4 or whatever before that.
Well, we do have to have an ordinance.
And that,
True.
that's kind of the point that I was,
True, but it's not been in there where it says it's necessary for us to approve it before we've even heard it. So why isn't this coming back after we heard it or whatever else?
What does the planning commission's wording say? Do you know, Nolan?
It just says, do you approve it and pass it on to the council? It's not, very few things are approved by the planning commission and stop there. It's, we recommend this to the county council. And so here it's reading that it's necessary that I approve it and everything else. And I'm just like, no.
My question about the staff report is the way that the planning commission decision is communicated in the staff report, is that different than it was before?
Well, now that, yes, you've got this here, but pages 1 through 4 have not been in there previously to what, 2 or 3 council meetings ago?
Yes.
The way I'm understanding it, Nolan, that the way it's being written in our agenda is it's got 5 pages of material that should be at the end of our packet.
If it's gotta be
rather
there
than
at all.
the first, and whether or not
it does need, if you're going to pass an ordinance, there needs to be a written ordinance.
Where's that been before in other agendas?
Totally separate. It used to always be, you know, as far as down at the bottom, all collected.
So you're saying pages 1 through 4 were always in there? Because I sure don't remember reading that
Well,
it was
whatever.
necessary.
Separate
They
ordinances.
were separate.
what you would see is you'd see.
But did it read the same way? It's necessary for us to approve it, it's already in there? I don't recall seeing that before.
No.
And I don't know who's been preparing those
I don't
recently,
either.
But that's common whereas language.
Well, then there ought to be a language that says, whereas they did not approve that. Where's that writing?
That's the opportunity, that's where you vote, no, we are not adopting this ordinance. There's a proposed ordinance that would be, we find it's necessary and good or whatever, and here's the reasons, and here's what the ordinance will do, and then you vote whether to adopt that ordinance or not. There's not a need to give you a draft of a negative ordinance that says, here, our ordinance is, we don't think any change is needed, and so therefore, there's no change to the code. You don't have an ordinance that does nothing. So you're getting a proposed ordinance that you say, yep, I agree, or no, I'm voting against this ordinance. And it sounds like that maybe the language of the whereas clauses, someone's been doing different language as they've prepared the ordinance.
I get concerned because that could slip through and go through even if we voted to denial or whatever else, if it's there. I mean, and I'm wondering why the civic reviews all of a sudden popped up.
Can I ask who's over civic review?
Yeah, so civic review is a pass-through system. We don't have anything to do with any kind of approval in the clerk's office with civic review. What happens is when somebody applies online, it's essentially an application system. So they submit the request to enter in an agenda item. Now, I don't know why the actual application was included with this. It's not really necessary. That was more for just internal use. But basically what it is all that happens is we review, someone from my office, not me, you don't have to worry about that. Someone from my office reviews the application and says, are all fields met? And if every field is filled out and complete, then we say that it can be pushed forward for review by Barbara and or legal if it requires legal review or an ordinance or something like that. But basically, that's all. It really is supposed to go to Barbara, and that's why you're getting the notifications. And then,
But how can I approve something that the council hasn't seen, you know?
And that's where I have a concern, because it could be held up forever on bureaucratic,
well, I don't think so.
because you just said, well, if they don't fill out all the fields, if they don't do everything right, your office can hold it up. And that's where we are having people insert themselves between the council and the county at this point in time. And I have significant concerns about that. You can couch it into, oh, it's just a pass-through. But if there's a way for your office to have any influence on it at all, there's a way for parts of this county to keep things from this council, and I don't appreciate that.
But you're notified of every single item.
Not until it's approved by your office, correct?
We don't approve anything.
But it doesn't pass through until your office has checked all the boxes, correct? Correct?
Wasn't that what you just said, Jess?
That's what you just said.
Misunderstand.
That's what you just said. Correct? Yes or no?
You've got to stop putting things into.
I'm just repeating what you said.
Here's what I'm going to say. You are correct.
Thank
But
you.
we are not withholding any type. Why would you accuse my office of trying to withhold information? It takes us maybe 5 minutes to review an item and send it on. To accuse my office of trying to withhold information is a lie.
I didn't accuse your office of anything. I repeated your words.
Well, can I say that I'm not involved in the agenda meetings, but my understanding, because I have worked with Janine when my office has had agenda items in the past and have been getting the civic review things now. My understanding is that before there was a more informal, we just took stuff to Janine. I understand that there's also been a Google Doc that people could input agenda items into that, and that there has been a coordinated effort to move some of the work from Janine to Jess's office, and along with that, Jess has software for this type of agenda requests. I haven't been able to figure out on civic review, when I've gotten the notifications for attorney office review as to form, how to indicate if it's good or not, and I've asked Jess's office to come and train me on civic review. If Barbara, as the chair, says, you know what, civic review isn't working for us, she could ask Jess's office to just go back to the Google Doc.
I would prefer to just let Barbara do it.
Barbara wants to try civic review, while she's the chair, your code says she does that agenda prep, and she could say, well, let's get everybody trained and give it a try, or let's just go back to Google Doc. That's my understanding of where things are on the agenda preparation.
At the last agenda planning meeting, Bryson and who's the lady? I'm sorry? Sydney. They kept saying, okay, we just got another request. Okay, we just got another request. Okay, we just got another request. And yet I'm not seeing those requests. And I would appreciate it, Jess, if you'd go back to the Google. That'd be great.
I just want to clarify a couple things. One, I'm more than happy to go back to the Google. This was just an efficiency way to try and help the county move toward counties are doing.
But as a council member, I'm sitting here having to click through 30 different items, when if we would combine what the planning commission said and everything else, instead of, or if you gotta put the civic review, put it in the same folder or the same attachment, so I'm sitting there in the same attachment, going through all the pages, and I go back and forth, rather having to get out and go into the next attachment. It just seems burdensome to me. And then when I sit and read, when I sat in the planning and zoning, I mean, if, for instance, there's planning on zoning, there's 7 individuals. If the vote is 4 yay, 3 nay, I'd like to know that, because there has to be an opinion of sitting and talking about that, rather than me reading, it's necessary for me to approve it, because the planning and zoning approved it. All they did was recommend approval. And then the council needs to sit and hear that, and I'd like to see how they're voted for it, before I sit and read that it is necessary and everything else in the prior part. So that's my concern.
Councilmember Gunnell, are you still, do you still have access to the folder where all of the documents were shared before with you?
From prior evenings, I'd have to go back. Yeah, we all can go back to that.
The FTP folder.
Yep.
Where, do you use that, or do you still have access to that? Because that's what I'm using.
And that's what we all use. It's just now, this has changed format in the last 3 or 4 council meetings.
If you prefer that old method, that should still be available exactly as it was prior, to go into the FTP folder and look at the documents there.
But it's the documents today that I'm talking about. And it's presented that I gotta go through a civic review, read that, get out, then go and find this, where I read the whereases before I've seen what the planning and zoning did, and I just disagree with that.
I think my understanding, if I'm listening to you guys correctly and trying to say, you know, technically we haven't taken it over, we're just sending what we received to Janine. I think some of it is we're in this in-between where we're sending stuff to Janine, she's not using civic review, and so we're kind of in this in-between, and we just need to go with one thing. And you don't want to look through the civic review documents, you just want the documents.
Right.
Well, if I gotta look at them, keep them in the same folder or the same attachment, and I really wanna get back to the chair of the council is really driving this, and that's putting weight onto the chair, and I don't flipping ever wanna be chair, so.
We're okay with whatever you guys want. In fact,
I would really rather have Barbara and Janine do the agenda. I don't understand the need for this middleman. You know very well that I disagree with the county attorney's assessment that the clerk has any part of the agenda in Cache County based on state law, Robert's rules, and our ordinances. And I just don't see the need. I think the council needs to control the agenda. I think that people need to submit their items to the chair and or to Janine. And I think that's how it needs to be. And I think you guys need to let the council be the council and stop trying to control this. I'm so frustrated with that. And if we have Nolan saying, hey, we need to fix this, let's fix it. I don't see any reason why we can't change the way those ordinances are worded at the whereas. You can take off that part. Whereas it doesn't have to say we find it necessary because it gives that before, right? I mean, or take it apart so that he doesn't read that. Or like, you know, I just think he has a great point, and I think you guys need to listen to the council.
Okay.
I feel like
Justice's
my
office didn't write
is-
the ordinance.
my
My
office
office did
is-
not write the ordinance, that's why I say, I think it came from Development Services. This is an ordinance coming from them as staff to the planning commission. So
Okay, so I'm,
Development Services about your desire to not have that type of whereas.
okay. Then, well, it's not only development services, there's something in here, a civic review from Bart also. So
Bart's request is item, with IT Bart or Fair Bart?
I'm sorry,
Which Bart was that? Sorry.
Bart Esplin,
That's item 7B, I believe.
yeah.
There, I mean, everything's, I think it's all the same issue.
Yeah, it is. So what I'm requesting, Jess, is that we go back to the Google Docs, if you could please do that, and let's not use civic review.
I'm more than okay with that. We were just doing this as a favor to the council and to,
Who on the council asked for that favor, Jess?
we had worked with.
Who on the council asked for that favor, Jess?
Oh, I'm not gonna do this with you.
Because nobody
Okay,
did. Thank
Let's,
you.
we're done. We're going to move on. We're going to Google Docs. Okay, back to Google Docs, please. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, it is 5:30, so we are going to go ahead and set some public hearings. We have Ordinance 2022-27, amending County Code Section 17 to amend requirements of use type 5810 private airport.
Madam Chair, I had a request from two people who live near an airport who cannot attend on the 23rd and asked if it would be okay if the council set that hearing for the following council meeting. I don't know how the council feels about that because there could be others who are not able to attend the next meeting, but I told them that I would let the council know about that, and it's a council decision of when to set that.
I think all of us on the council got some emails from some concerned
Yes.
citizens there, right?
Yes.
So, given that, I would be okay with moving that so that there's more input from the citizens who are affected by that.
So we're saying the September meeting, is that what we're saying?
Yep.
Okay. There's been a motion made.
What day is that?
Yeah, what day?
September, first one?
September
It'd be the second one.
Second one, so
So is that the one that you're gonna do it?
we'd move it to the
Do it
first,
the
is what you
13th.
said.
The 13th.
Is that right?
Is the first one.
Okay.
I'll move that we set a public hearing for September 13th for ordinance 2022-27, amending County Code Section 17 to amend requirements for 5810 private airport.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we set the public hearing for ordinance 2022-27 to September 13th. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good, thank you. Okay, set a public hearing for September 13th for the open space bond.
Madam Chair, I move we set the public hearing for September 13th for the open space bond.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we set a public hearing for September 13th, 2022 for the open space bond. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Did I do the all in favor on A?
You did.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, item C, public hearing ordinance 2022-23, William Cody Pitcher rezone. A rezone to rezone 16.13 acres from the agricultural A10 zone to the rural 5 RU5 zone located at 7288 North, 4800 West, near Amalga.
Move that we set a public hearing for ordinance 2022-2023.
We're having the public hearing right now, sorry.
I was ready
okay.
to set it.
You good? All right, and it looks like Tim's going to give us some information.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. For your consideration this evening is a rezone request for the property located about 7288 North, 4800 West. The applicant is William Cody Pitcher, and they are requesting rezone from A10 to RU5. You can see the vicinity east of Newton, out in the unincorporated area, and located off of 4800 West. Minor collector. Minor Collector Road, and not far off of 7000 North. Here's an aerial image of the property. You can see that it's irrigated farmland on a good portion of the property with an existing home and some ag buildings and operations. The intent of the applicant is to build another home, kind of in a cluster configuration closer to 4800 West. Maybe an option to build a third home in the future, but with the intent of continuing to farm the irrigated farmland. This is a analysis of the surrounding area showing the adjacent parcels with an average 8.8 acre lot size. On built parcels, about 80 acres without a home is the average lot size. And then within a quarter mile, again, average of 8 acres, 3 parcels. And then within a half mile, a larger lot average with more dispersed housing there. So the Planning Commission reviewed this and found the location be compatible with the purposes of the RU5 zone, finding that it's compatible with smaller scale farming and does not reasonably impede the use of these agricultural uses and has road access. So that's a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Tim. All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to address this? Okay.
Move to close the public hearing.
Oh, we have one?
We got a.
Come on in, please. Come on up. And if you'll state your name, please.
I'm William Cody Pitcher, and I just wanted to say that I just wanted to build out on our farm, and it's right there by my parents. And like you said, I was gonna leave the majority of it still in Greenbelt, the farm, and I just wanted to be out there on the farm, so.
Very good. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Pitcher? All right, thank you, Mr. Pitcher.
To close public hearing?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we close the public hearing for Ordinance 2022-23, William Cody Pitcher rezone. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on, public hearing, Ordinance 2022-24, the Martin Bench rezone. And Tim, more information for us?
Yes, thank you. So this is about a 34-acre parcel. You'll note the presence of some sensitive lands, including some steeper slopes over 30%, and that's part of what has prompted the rezone application, and that is that there are some restrictions that limit the development potential. The goal of the applicant is to build subdivide and build up to 3 homes. You also see the presence of source water protection areas, and that shows a source 2 is the colored area, which would limit any septic systems on that portion of the property. So given some of the limitations on the property, the purpose of the applicant's request from A10 to RU5, and this is property west of Mendon, located kind of at the lower mountain bench areas, about 1032 south, 7000 west. And that's the intent of subdividing with up to 3 homes. And so here's the vicinity. The access would come off of 100 south, a private road extending from 1000 south, and there's been some study to explore that could be feasible. And so here's the aerial image of the parcel. And Mendon City has not expressed concerns and has really no comments opposing this as the neighboring municipality. So any questions or comments?
Thank you. Any questions for Tim? Okay, again, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to address this issue? Yes, please come forward, and if you'll state your name.
Yeah, my name is Chad Martin. I'm the owner of the property. Appreciate you letting me be here tonight. Just basically, like Tim said, we're looking to just make it for 3 lots for our children to be able to build there. It's not going to really, I don't think, affect much. I know there's been some concerns as far as that 1000 South Road. Just as a heads up, and I imagine you guys know this anyway with the road conditions and that, but on the 4th of July, we counted over 70 cars that weekend. And on the 24th of July, there was about 65 cars up there. Enough that there's so many vehicles too that the road, if we had just put a couple more houses in there, I don't think it would affect that at all. The biggest traffic is all the people coming up to the trailhead. Yeah, and there's so many people that go to that trailhead. Like I said, over those 2 weekends, we were unable to get into a couple of our fences and where our gates are because people were parking.
And what trailhead is that, Mr. Ben?
Excuse me?
What trailhead is that? I'm sorry.
That's the Deep Canyon, I think is what they call it, Deep Canyon Trailhead.
We're responsible for it.
And
Yeah.
that's the one that,
We're also putting a lot of money into making a parking lot and a bunch of other things up there.
right, yeah, they're
Thank
in
you.
the process of doing it.
Closed, are they going up there still and walking that and whatnot? I'm
Yeah,
assuming they are.
they're still bikers. The city of Mendon has closed that, but they're still up there. It's still, heavily used by other people, and that's, okay, but just wanted to bring that up.
And I brought that to the attention of the planning group because I'm like, if we're throwing all those cars in the parking lot up there, we need to be aware of that road.
Yeah.
Because we did have issues last year with the road as well.
Yeah, they did come out, it was so washboardy that if you're up driving in any kind of a truck with any kind of trailer when we go, it's four-wheel drive and lower, we can't make it up the road. It gets pretty rough from all this other traffic that hits it. The Minden City, like Tim said, they're okay with us changing the changing it from an A10 to an RU5. We're just about an acre and a half short, and that's why we're trying to do this, to be able to get that. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Any more questions for Mr. Martin? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other want to comment on this? All right, very good.
Motion to close public hearing?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we close the public hearing on ordinance 2022-24, Martin Bench rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to ordinance 2022-25, the Winnie's Properties rezone. Tim?
Thank you. So this rezone request is on 2 parcels totaling about 35 acres just to the east of Wellsville on the east side of Highway 8991 with access off of 6100 South. The rezone request is from A10 to RU2. And here's a vicinity map showing the 2 parcels adjacent to Wellsville City. This is within the annexation area of Wellsville and their interest to expand and apply their development standards to future development in this area. There are some infrastructure challenges and some ongoing studies between Wellsville City and the applicant. Wellsville has opposed this rezone request, citing that they would like to continue to work with the applicant to find ways to extend sewer and other utility services to the property. Here's the parcel analysis showing the average developed parcel sizes with a home at 1 acre and 6.8 acres and 3.2 acres within a quarter-mile buffer, and with a home 2.8 acre average within a half-mile buffer, for your perspective. There were also some surrounding resident concerns and opposition expressed to this rezone request. So that's my summary.
Any questions for Tim? All right, again, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to address this issue? All right.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we close the public hearing on ordinance 2022-25, Winnie's Properties rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's go back up to item 7, the general plan update by Lauren Ryan.
Took a long way up here this evening. Tim, do you want your laptop back? Well, good evening, council members. I come with good news about the general plan this evening. So last Thursday, we took the general plan to a public hearing to the Planning Commission, which is the first step in the process. And the Planning Commission voted to approve the, and remind you, we have the general plan and then those 3 supporting elements as well with it. So the Planning Commission moved to approve the general plan and the regional collaboration plan, with just minor updates to those, just a couple of small typos and that sort of thing in there. And then did not move forward the urban and rural area assessment and cost of services plan, pending some more information needing for those. So this evening, I'm coming to you with a couple of different options we have for next steps in the process. One of which would be to have a workshop before we take it to public hearing in front of the county council for adoption. And so we could host that workshop before your next public meeting on August 23rd, and then move into a public hearing that evening if council would be comfortable with that. We could also have a workshop on the 23rd and have the public hearing on September 13th. And then, I'm just throwing out all these options, and then we could also, if council's feeling comfortable, we don't need to have a workshop, and we could have a public hearing to adopt those two elements on August 23rd. So, throwing out those three kind of various options to you all for discussion this evening. I know that my item was not under the part of the agenda to set a public hearing, so I don't know if that's something that we would be able to do this evening, but want to throw out those options for your consideration this evening.
Council, any opinions on that?
Well, if we set a public hearing, which the council has to do, so we have to put on our agenda next time, right?
Right.
But the 13th, we're already going to have a hearing on the open space bond and
Right.
one on the airport, which I get the feeling there's going to be a lot of people at that one. Does that give us enough time to have a public hearing on this
Well, we'd have to set the
23rd of
public hearing.
September.
on September 13th? Yeah.
Right, so you're saying,
Is what I'm saying.
oh, right, for the September 13th is the two big ones. Right, so if you wanted to, yeah, you could move up the public hearing to August 23rd if council would be comfortable with that. So that gives us enough time between now and then to properly notice the public of a public hearing. But we could also move it to the second meeting in September as well. So don't want to push for, one date or another, but what the council is comfortable with.
Janine, are we aware of any workshop that we were planning on the 23rd?
There was the salsa show.
Oh, okay, yeah, I knew there was
Oh,
something. Yeah.
I don't want to get in the way of salsa, but we could have salsa and talk about the general plan. Yes.
Yeah, they could be held together,
All and eating salsa, things are really.
I'm
starting
saying
to
go
move.
ahead, have it then. Let's do it. No.
So
Right.
is it agreeable then that we have the workshop and public hearing on August 23rd to the council?
We have to put it on our agenda to set a public hearing, so we have to put it on the agenda for the 23rd to
Right.
set a public hearing.
Okay, yes. Okay, so we'll have does everybody want a workshop to begin with?
So let me ask you this, Lauren, because the planning commission did not get all the way through that. You got the collaboration and everything else.
Right.
Would you be able to present that? I mean, we're waiting for,
I think if we get a little, have a little bit more time by that either September 13th hearing date, or if that agenda is too packed, we would probably most likely be a little bit closer with the cost of services plan, and be able to present all of that. Tim, did you have something to add to that?
to avoid two
Right.
training meetings to go over general plan and then cost of services and everything else.
Sure. So it's anticipated that the cost of services, and the assessment would be ready enough for planning commission review, and we would hope approval or recommendation of approval on the 1st of August. And so 1st of September, I apologize. And so we could present it in an advanced form to the council, very consistent with what would be presented to council, to the commission. And so we feel it would be ready for a meaningful workshop, and then hopefully recommended for approval by the council for a September hearing.
Nolan, does that answer your question?
Yeah, the only thing I'm saying is we have a workshop, but we had very little participation from the public on the public hearing at the planning and zoning. One public person showed up, so I just hope that we get more involved on that or get more input, but right now, there's only 2 parts that are ready for us to review, and then you'd have the others. So I'm just trying to see how we can
Right.
more consistent use of the time.
I see, right. And so we could potentially, if the council does want to hold a workshop, we could hold the workshop on the 23rd and then set
I'm not saying I don't want one, I'm just
Right.
saying I'd like to
And then-
combine everything in that.
Right, exactly. So we could hold that workshop on the 23rd and then also at that public hearing, set the public hearing for a later meeting.
To me, that would help, because then the council has an idea of what's going on before the public meeting.
Okay.
Right, does that make sense? Instead of holding the actual public hearing on the 23rd, we would set that public hearing.
Yeah,
right?
we'd need to do that anyways,
Right.
so.
Right.
Okay, so workshop on August 23rd, and then we'll set a public hearing for the next meeting.
Great,
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
great. Awesome, great, thank you for your
Lauren.
help. Yep, thanks.
Thank you. All right, next we have Sheriff Jensen. Come on up, Sheriff. Future budget requests. And Fairgrounds, Event Center, elections.
What's that?
It says elections.
I don't have anything to do with elections,
Okay.
so that's not my bailiwick there. And thank you for giving me a few minutes at your council meeting tonight. And I think part of my discussion comes after our meeting that we had last weekend, kind of what we're looking at a little closer this year and what's moving on in towards next year as the budget process comes through. Part of the discussion we had last week in meeting of a few of us, just at my office, is the need for additional maintenance personnel, given the size and complexity of the sheriff's office. Now we have the impound facility would be part of that, and also the acquisition of the search and rescue building, which is in great shape, by the way, but I would like to keep it that way and have somebody who can stay on top of maintenance and repairs and those kind of things, so we don't end up with huge bills to keep that right, but stay on top of things and kind of do what we've done with the sheriff's complex and do maintenance and routine replacements of things, so we're always on top of stuff. So with that is my request tonight would be, and is actually twofold. Is one, I have put into next year's budget, which hasn't been approved or considered yet, for an additional full-time maintenance employee for the sheriff's complex and the other complexes that go with that. But my ask for tonight is to hire that additional employee now, basically 1st of September, to get us through this year and help us get this other couple of projects finished. I do have the money in my current budget to pay for it this year, but I wouldn't want you to approve that tonight, not knowing what the approval process would be for 2023.
Okay.
So I think that's the question I have for the council. Is that something you're willing to consider, or would you like me to hold that until we see what happens with the 2023 budget process?
Council?
So you want to add a new person?
It's a new full-time employee.
Position, but you don't know if for next year that job would continue, right? That's the question. Would we
Well,
still continue the job next year?
Yeah, it is in next year's budget to add a new full-time employee. I guess my ask for tonight would be, can we add that new full-time employee today rather than 2023? But I don't know what the council's position is on new employees moving into next year, and I don't want to get out in front of this and be outside the lines for the 2023 budget.
So Chad, if I'm thinking right on this, you want to hire them and get them going before the first of the year.
Correct.
And the budget, but you also want to have the time to get them trained up so that when the first of the year hits, you're all ready to go.
Yeah, well, and I think we may be talking two different things. I'm talking about like a general maintenance person, does air conditioning,
okay.
plumbing, heating, sprinkler systems, fire systems, all that. And I'll talk about the other piece with the
Gotcha.
employees in just a minute.
Okay.
So that would be my request for tonight is the additional full-time maintenance person, which isn't, for this year, isn't a financial request because it's in my budget because I've had the holes and I haven't replaced my chief deputy since March. So financially for this year, there'd be no cost, but I'd be asking tonight to approve another full-time employee that would hit the budget for the entire year and a new employee starting in January.
So who's covered the maintenance of the sheriff's office and complex that we have now up to this point?
We have one full-time and one part-time maintenance people now. What we're needing is another full-time maintenance person to go with that. We may not need the part-time position if we get a full-time position. So that might be able to dissolve the part-time and just go with a full-time rather than a part-time.
Okay.
And this, Chad, this position was contemplated in the budget request you've already submitted
Correct.
for 2023.
For 2023.
So those 2023 numbers reflect this.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Did it reflect a part-time as well, or just another full-time?
I think that it reflects both, but not knowing which one's going to be which, what was going to be approved, we still need at least at minimum the part-time position, so I left them both in there, but the part-time position could probably be dissolved if it turns into a full-time position.
So if we really look at it, we're going from 1.5 to 2 rather than from 1.5 to 2.5.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking what you're requesting is that we take the part position and move it to full-time, and then you're kind of thinking and pretty well convinced that your part-time man will suddenly become a full-time man
For this year?
for this year.
Yeah, the option's there. Now, there's the application piece, and our part-time employee now is interested and would submit for that, which I hope that he would, because he's very well trained and he understands the complexity of what we have right now. He's been part of the process in the planning and designing, at least what the contractors are doing for the impound facility. So he is up to speed on both of those projects. And I really haven't sent either one of them over to the search and rescue building because we haven't had any issues, but my goal is to not have any issues and stay on top of things before do maintenance rather than damage control.
So if I was to make a motion that we go ahead and hire a full-time person, in the thought of taking the part-time to full-time, if he's willing to accept that, and that's really what you're requesting right now.
It is, correct.
Madam Chair, I'd make that motion that we go ahead and allow Sheriff Jensen to move the part-time person to full-time. You're jumping up, Amy, like I'm ahead of the game.
Yeah, you are.
Am I ahead of the game?
Hold the phone. So we can't make a motion that we move a part-time person to a full-time position because we have to go through the hiring process because it is a new full-time position. So you could make a motion that you approve to have a full-time position available, and then we'll go through the hiring process to find the best qualified applicant for that. And it could possibly be that part-time person, but they would still have to go through the application
So
process.
how do I
as
make
well.
that in a motion with all that discussion that you just threw out?
What she said? I don't know.
I think the motion could be that the council approves an additional full-time position for maintenance.
Maintenance at the sheriff's complex.
Correct.
I'll second that.
I'm okay with that if the part-time comes off, though. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, we would not, if
If you get a full-time, you're not going to
we're not going to
part-time,
backfill the
right?
part-time.
Okay.
And
so
if
we're clear on
the full-time position is approved tonight, then I will contact finance and get the part-time position taken out of 2023's budget so it doesn't reflect that part-time position.
Okay, I'll add that to my motion that we make available a full-time position for maintenance at the sheriff's department complex and dissolve the part-time position as the full-time person comes on.
I'll still second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the sheriff's request at the complex to post for a full-time position as long as in the 2023 budget, the part-time position is eliminated. Okay, all in favor?
Let's have some discussion.
Okay, very good, Dave.
First of all, right now, these people that are working down there right now, your 1.5 time, are they doing inside building and grounds maintenance, everything?
Yes.
Okay.
And as far as the watering and lawns and stuff, no, the inmates do most of that down there, but they're doing all the sprinkling systems. They do use a lot of contractors for some of the work that's inside, but they understand who to call, when to call. They've built the schedules for air conditioner maintenance and replacements, and some of those things that don't require a contractor, they're fixing clogged drains, small electrical, those kind of things.
So you have your own team there, although it'd be a couple now if we approve this, right?
Correct.
We have a team here, I guess, of a few, maintaining these facilities. Down there at the fairgrounds, they have a team. And any other I
don't
imagine
know.
there's their team that's also doing the roads department sheds and stuff. I'm seeing some redundancy here. Is there a way that we could maybe correlate and bring those together to where you had a team that just took care of all county facilities? Make it a little more efficient?
I don't know what everybody else has, so she could probably answer that question better than I.
Broaden their range of scope for
Well,
buildings.
No, just cover everything that they're.
A Cass County maintenance guy who covers the building.
You know, just a team that would.
Rather than a,
Looks at the big picture, and if they're needed more here, and they just do it on rotation, I think there's maybe just organize it just a little more efficient, and we're getting more done with less, maybe.
Councilman Erickson, I appreciate you bringing that up because that has been a discussion between the executive and myself, trying to consolidate and be more efficient. So we could be looking towards that and having that type of team. It may require to make a new department, as maybe a facilities department, so that then that facilities department is then over all facilities and not each individual campus having their own facilities. So something to think about.
well, isn't that what's kind of done in the Cass County School District? You have a facilities group and they travel and do the buildings and I could see more efficiency doing that way here too as well.
Except if we have to hire another director, and then another secretary to help the
Well, I was
director,
just
and then here we go,
thinking,
then we're back to ground
there's a
zero,
lot
we're
of
better
times-
off.
A lot of times, just what you're thinking, Dave, when you take and go ahead and do a new department, then that means we gotta have a department head with the secretary, and then we have the people that go do the actual work. And so, if we can make it more efficient by combining it all, fine, but if we have to combine it all and then hire another person to oversee it all, we didn't accomplish anything.
I would propose that I could put together a plan to present to the council in the next few council meetings for you to review, if that's the way that you would like to go. If not, to accomplish the purpose that the sheriff's at, I can see that he needs this person right now because of the opening of the animal shelter, and so.
And I agree with that. But I think down the road, I was hoping that maybe to help the sheriff, that we could take something off his plate, that there's a couple things he wouldn't have to worry about, because there's a group that is coming around and doing all this preventative maintenance and taking care of these things in some rotation that makes it efficient.
Would you like me to put a proposal together to bring to the council?
I would like you to have input from the three areas
Yeah.
that they've said and see if they think it could be more efficient if they worked as a combined group rather than separate.
Okay, sounds great. We'll work towards that.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Amy.
Could I make a comment to that?
Yes.
It's kind of related that as I've worked with people within the attorney's office to complete a children's justice center, I realized that attorneys are not great at overseeing construction always. And that maybe the sheriff's office could you, it would be nice if there is a facilities group that perhaps they also are over construction of new facilities and not just maintenance. And Matt Phillips has mentioned the same thing. So
very good.
If you're looking at going that direction, I'd suggest including that component as well.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. That brings us back to with the sheriff's request.
We're back to the vote.
We're back to the vote. Okay, any more discussion on this? All right. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? There you go, Sheriff.
Great, thank you. Just a heads up on what we talked about this the last council meeting, I think, and I'm just trying to give a heads up to what you'll see in the budget opening pieces, is we got to look at staff and employees for the impound facility, which we haven't been hiring or doing, because not knowing what the date is, don't want to have somebody or two people sitting around for months waiting for this thing to open, whether it opens or not. So I think we've kind of got the numbers kind of put together. You'll see that, I think, next month in a budget opening, what it would look like for, it might only be 1 month of this year, depending on what the opening is going to be. But those numbers are also reflected in the 2023 budget when you get to that point in your conversations as a council.
Very good.
But that's just a heads up more than anything at this point.
Okay.
Sheriff, thank you for your transparency, your communication and your foresight into what you present to us. It's appreciated.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm going to skate. I got to head to a funeral, and here's the guy I'm supposed to be picking up in a few minutes. So
Okay.
Judge Judkins has actually passed away, so hate to have him go, but
Yeah.
we're going to buzz over to Tremont and pay our respects.
We hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday last week. I didn't know until this guy called me yesterday and says, "Hey, did you hear about the judge?" And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't take the paper anymore, so I didn't see it, but
Okay, great.
his viewing's tonight, so we're going to go over and pay our respects.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, now we have Fairgrounds. Bart, if you'll come up, please.
While Bart's coming up, I'd like to confess a error on my part, and it's kind of funny. I was down to the fair, and we needed some sawdust moved from the big pile in the center of the arena, and I'm on a low-energy lifestyle, and so I thought, hey, I'm going to get Bart to bring his tractor in and put the sawdust in my stall without having to do it with wheelbarrow. So who should I call? But Bart Nichols, and I wanted a tractor, and I says, come on down. He paused for a while, and he said, I'd love to do that, Councilman Zillis, but we don't have tractors in the IT. And I thought, oh boy, what a dumb. So anyway, I had to get Bart's phone number from Janine, Bart Esplins, and I called, and he had one of my old classmates bring the skid steer by, and we got the bedding done, and I felt stupid. So anyway, I owe you a favor.
Include that in your next budget request, Bart.
We all make those kind of mistakes. That's happened to me several times. Well, thank you for your time tonight, Madam Chair, members of the council. There's 3 budget items that I'd like to present to you tonight, kind of in order of priority for me anyway. First is an item that about a year ago, Margaret Gittens come and presented to you a suicide awareness concert that we wanted to do. And at that time, you approved $50,000 budget to be able to do that. And the event was successful. We had good community turnout. There were some letters that were shared with me after that event of people whose lives may have been saved from that night. So it was a very meaningful night for a lot of people. What brings me here tonight about this event, or this year, is that event budget did not get into this year's budget. I mean, it was after the budget was presented last year in 21 for the 22 budget, and oversight, it did not get into my budget this year. So I come to you asking for $50,000 tonight to be able to put on that event. There will be offsetting revenue to cover that amount. It's just a formality to get that money moved around. So.
Didn't that happen last year?
Yes, it did.
And the revenue came in, so didn't that 50,000 be able to roll it over for the next year, so you're already ahead of schedule?
Different lines. So there's the revenue side and the expense side. So that money just stayed back to the county.
General budget, got it.
Yes. Yes. So last year, I believe it was funded out of RAPS. I know there's not a budget opening now until September. I have money in another line that I can cover that. I'm just looking for the approval of the council tonight to be able to do that in anticipation of that occurring at the budget opening.
So you're asking for a budget transfer?
Yes.
Well, I think it's a worthy cause, and I think that it's gonna get offset, so I'll move that we transfer $50,000 from, what part of your budget it is?
740 out of my, probably my capital improvements for now, and then we'll replace that.
Okay, so move that we'll transfer $50,000 out of capital improvements in the fairgrounds to the suicide awareness night.
I'll second that.
Motion.
Okay, very good. It's been moved and seconded that we transfer $50,000 from the fairgrounds budget line 740, capital improvements, to the suicide prevention night.
And I think before we vote on that, it's appropriate to recognize Margaret for being the genesis behind this event, and for Margaret and yourself for being the folks that really have pushed this along. And you need to be recognized as the folks that really started this.
Thank you.
Before we vote, we need to make sure we publicly acknowledge and recognize that.
That's true.
Thank you.
Very well said.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me move on to the second item. So we're in the process of submitting to a FEMA grant to, FEMA mitigation project that will install a backup generator for the Cache County Event Center to be used in emergencies, natural disasters and such. The benefits of this generator would be, or areas that it can be very helpful. The event center can be used as an emergency shelter. We can use it as a command center if there was ever a problem down at the sheriff's office that made theirs unusable. It's a backup. We are currently considered a backup for our county jail. So they would actually bring inmates in and house them at the event center if need be in an emergency. Emergency shelter in severe weather. Obviously, we've just lived through a pandemic, and that building was used as a vaccination center during the pandemic for a time. And then in a possible civil disobedience situation, it may be used. So part of this grant, it's a competitive grant. We're in a kind of a pre-approval situation with the state, and then it goes to FEMA. But so it's a matching grant. So we're looking at a project that may cost up to $500,000. We don't anticipate the cost be that high, but the way these grants work, it could be years before this comes around, and we've seen what construction costs and equipment costs have done over the last couple of years. So we're going to base our figure on a $500,000 estimate.
For a generator?
For a generator and the installation to run the entire event center. Right now, I think we're probably closer to $250, but by the time 2 or 3 years rolls around, we could be up there. So
before, when we were doing the emergency services thing, that we needed a backup place, and so isn't there some other areas to look at if we are going to do this as a backup, that we involve some other departments or some other look as to where we get money for this? Because he's right, the head talked about if the sheriff's office isn't available, then we need a backup. So I'm like,
I just remember talking about the event center. I don't remember other places.
So this money will only be needed if we can get this grant. So the approval process, I don't know, the state has it for a year, I think. Is that correct? And then it goes to FEMA for another round of cutting and figuring out who's going to get that money. So what I'm looking for tonight is it takes a minimum of a 25% match to get that, and we don't have to have the money today. I just at the end of the day, I'll need a commitment from the county with a signed letter agreeing that if we get that grant, we're going to commit to that 25%. Now, like I said, it is competitive, so the more that we put towards that grant, if we go 30%, we get 5 extra points, which in a competitive situation, so that changes it from $125,000 to $150,000 commitment.
Does that max out our points on the?
I believe so. Does that max out?
It's just additional points. They score the application, and you get 5 extra points if you provide more than 20.
And it's just 5. So if we go from 25 to 30, we get 5 points. But if we go to 35, we still get 5 points. Okay.
Can we use ARPA
I was
funds
just
for
gonna ask,
this?
is there no ARPA money sitting that would qualify for this?
Oh.
Well, it sounds like, Bart, what you're asking, though, is that we don't need to necessarily figure out if it's ARPA money or if it's general fund money right now. You just need something from the council that would commit 30% of the $500,000 to do the grant. And then we can figure out at a later date if we want to use ARPA money, if we want to use a different department money, if we want to use general fund money. So you're just looking from us right now as a motion to sign that letter to say Cache County is going to be good for 30% of that $500,000 toward a generator for the event center.
Correct. And just for clarification, you can't use federal money for a federal grant.
Okay.
So you can't use the ARPA.
Well, we're so awash in ARPA money, we literally have a Scrooge McDuck room back there we swim in it. So.
Okay.
Yes, so that would be the request for this project.
Well, and from what I understand, you're estimating in 3 years, it might be 500,000, but if we got it today, it'd be 275. So it's still an estimate, and it might be cheaper than where we're at.
Correct, it may be, yes.
Madam Chair, I think we ought to go ahead and allow us to send a letter of acceptance that we would support a 30% grant and up to 30%. And let's continue to apply for that grant because that is something that maybe in the future we'll need. And there's no for sures that we're going to get it.
I would second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve a letter stating that we will match the 30% on that and just sending that letter out, but the actual monies, where it's coming from, will be determined at a later date. Okay?
By a future council.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
So a couple of Honda generators won't do it then.
A couple hundred, 2,000, the 2100s plugged together, I think that'll work. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
One last item I want to bring up. So in 2021, the Fairgrounds was awarded a RAPS award to fill in the stormwater retention pond that has currently been at the south of the rodeo arena down there at the fairgrounds. That project is progressing very nicely. That pond is filled in. The piping is in place. A couple items though that we've run into. Number one, the amount of dirt that was required to fill that pond was considerably more than what was estimated by the engineer to do that. So we have a cost overrun there, as well as a stormwater collection box that was not in the plans that needed to be purchased and installed. So we were $29,000 over what our anticipated costs were on that part of the project. Now that's not necessarily, we're not over budget on this project, but where I'm at now, due to a change in the scope of the project, we was going to leave a small part of that pond to pump out of, but that's still going to be in the way of parking and future things that we want to do down there. So we changed the scope of the project a little bit to move our point of diversion for our water over by a fence line, install a shallow well, and pump out of that. Well, that incurs additional costs. And just to give you a breakdown of where we're at. So the original project budget was $154,232. Currently, we've spent $130,804 on the fill and the piping, with approximately $5,000 in engineering that we've used throughout this process. That leaves a balance of $18,428. So the additional work that needs to be done for the well and the connections to hook up that up to our piping, as well as a little bit more additional fill dirt and some grass seed, those all come. So the well and the piping is $87,600. We're estimating $15,000 in additional fill material, $2,000 for grass seed. That brings us to $104,600, which leaves me at an $86,172 deficit to be able to complete that project. So I would like to request, and I know this, here again, we're not in a budget opening, but we consider maybe some additional RAPS money to be able to complete this project.
That's the monies that ought to be used for this too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the purpose of why we would hold
back
certain
some.
things for those kind of
Yeah.
special projects for not only this entity, but other entities too.
Absolutely. Is there that much money in that account that we've held back through the years to cover this
Yeah.
without putting us in too big of a squeeze?
Bart, I do have one question on your
Yes.
request here. It says the Fairgrounds was awarded $107. Oh, it says 107.000. Is it 107,000?
So it was, we was awarded, the total, sorry, that's confusing. The total project cost, or what I asked for at the time was $154,000. Or
Okay.
the total cost was $154. Part of that was matching money. So that's not actually the RAPS award amount, that was the total cost.
All right. Okay. Very good. Council, any more discussion? Or do we have a motion?
So I have a question.
Okay.
Are you asking to transfer funds you already have, or we're trying to put new funds? Because if we're putting in new funds, don't we need to do a budget opening?
For RAPS?
Yeah, that's my question. Don't we need to, if we're increasing a department's budget, don't we need to do a budget opening?
But is this a one-time thing that the RAPS would fix?
But and coming from RAPS, I think you have to have a budget.
Budget opening?
Probably have to have some form of a hearing to open that.
True.
So whatever Lucy says that we need to do, let's follow his counsel and do what we need to so that we can get it on its way.
Yes.
And I'm happy to get this in the next budget opening. I just wanted to give you a heads up. And if there's some of this project, the well itself, I might can get started on and stay within the budget that I currently have and just move forward as we get that additional funding.
That'll give John time to look up and see how we're supposed to approve it.
Can you define well? Is it only the wells that's as deep as the pond is that we're sucking the water from the pond, or are we going deeper?
I have no idea how deep that pond was. It gobbled up an extra 2,000 yards of dirt that we didn't plan on. So we are going to go 30 feet deep on this well. We're tapping into the groundwater, which is what we was using in the pond. We're not getting down into any aquifer beyond what the groundwater.
My interest is how deep we were going, so.
Yeah, 30 feet.
Council?
So then, Bart, you're just, I mean, I guess today, right, the council's in agreement, we're gonna do a budget opening. We're looking to the county attorney to make sure we do that right, to make sure you have that $86,000 from the holdback that we had from RAPS to fund this project.
Yes.
I think it's worthy project to fund.
That's why I understand.
That's a motion?
What if we make a motion? I mean, if it's a motion, I'll make the motion to open up a budget hearing so that we can appropriate that money correctly.
That's all we need. I don't think we need any more specifics than that.
Okay.
The next budget opening.
Okay, very good.
Second.
Do we have to move in second on that?
I don't think you need to vote.
Okay. Thank you, Bart.
All right, thank you. I'm going back to the fair.
Okay.
And
Thank
no
you.
sleep, right?
Yeah.
That looks really, really good. We're ready for the fair. I think we should let you know we appreciate it. When you're talking about the holding pond, I thought maybe that was that mud hole right in the middle of the parking.
That water was timely. I just hope for the next few days we can kind of keep that away so we don't have more mud holes.
Have the dust that we would have had.
No, we certainly don't. Thank you.
Thanks, Bart. Thank you for everything you do also. All right, elections. Jess, please.
To be among friends, how good it feels. I just, this is not a request coming from my office that we are adding to my budget. This is a request that's required by law for the bond that council passed. So we put together two options based on state code. State code allows you to either send the bond voter information packet directly to the individual, or it allows you to send a postcard, and then it has to also be paid, the postage and a return, and then pre-addressed and returned from that individual. And so we put together the estimates. We put together a 25% estimated rate of return. We cannot move forward with this because there's no funding in the election budget for it, and we have no wiggle room at all. I want to be clear on that. We don't have room to move things between lines for this. And so this is a requirement for the bond that council passed, Resolution 2022-21. So.
Didn't I read in an email or something that some of the people who were promoting this open space was looking at getting some money and doing this and promoting that, or did I read wrong? Or even when I went to open space meetings, I was hearing that.
That I couldn't tell you. All I know is that the law requires that the governing body is the one who pays for this. I believe in Section 2 down at the bottom, it says when the debt service is beyond $15 per year, second to last code on 2, the governing body shall prepare and mail either a voter information pamphlet. So I don't think even if that body, unless they counted as the county prepared and mailed that it would count as the governing body.
And does this have to be, this voter information that you're trying to get out there, does it have to be specific just for this item? Or is it part of a packet that goes out for all, you know, the RAPs? We have a RAPs tax, you know, issue that we got coming up. Any other thing that's on the ballot, you know, can it just go out as one mailing?
This has to be a separate mailing? I mean,
Yeah, typically you don't want to put a bunch of things together because it tends to confuse voters as to what they're looking at. That's just best practice.
Well, they're all together when they vote.
I'm trying to think of a
Well, they're in
time where I've
separate-
received different mailings on ballot initiatives. They seem to all come in one mailing.
We should be able to do it that way, shouldn't we?
I think so.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
It's up to council if you want to say that you want to put some things together. My recommendation is stated vehemently that we don't do that because you tend to confuse voters, and voters are already have a big packet of information in front of them. But, I mean, my last request was voted down for voter information, so I'm going to leave it to council to determine.
Well, and this was given to us tonight, correct? It wasn't in, I'm always, it wasn't in the packet, like Bart's information was, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna need more time to look at this.
We don't have more time, Paul.
Okay, well, then since I didn't see it before tonight, and I've never seen multiple mailings.
Paul, why do you seem so hostile towards my office?
Hostile. I'm just saying, there's $50,000. I've never seen multiple mailings on ballot initiatives. I think we've already built into our budget what we're gonna send out to the voters from an information packet, correct? Yes or no? It's a yes or no question, yes.
No, you have not.
So we're not sending voters information on what's gonna be on the ballot this year.
No, you're not. You are sending people a ballot, and that's it. You have allocated funding for a ballot to be mailed out with a return envelope.
Wasn't there an email sent that said that the group over this was doing something on money? Where is that going to?
Yeah,
I
what
remember
this
that
group is
too.
doing, they're sending out information as a campaign to encourage people to vote for it, to make people aware of what it is they'll be voting on and voting for. This has to do with voter statute.
Neutral voter information
Yes,
pamphlet.
yeah,
It's required
and
by
so it's
statute
required
when
by
you do
law.
the bond, and the governing body is to.
So let's talk about that packet.
Let's talk about it.
Why can't it all be one thing? Because we're going to be talking about RAPs, we're going to be talking about all of those things. Why can't we say, voters, here's what you got to be looking at? Because when they go to the booth, it's all on one voting session, right? or when they mail it.
I think that you could put that all together.
Because we've already built into our budget outgoing postage, return postage. So this is asking for, if I do some quick, easy math, 34,000 plus in postage for an additional mailer that could be included in the mailer we've already built into our budget for the ballot that's going out. We cannot do an insert into that ballot. That's impossible to do. Because as a voter, I'm going to get my ballot, and I should be able to see the instructions on what's going to be on that ballot within that same envelope. Otherwise, as a voter, I'm going to have to get two different mailings.
I may have misunderstood the question. Is there simply the ballot that is going to be mailed out, and the proposal is to send this pamphlet with the ballot?
Correct. We can't do that?
I don't think you can be sending, I don't know.
But we're sending, aren't we sending a voter information packet out anyhow?
It's going to have all the ballot language on that ballot, is it not?
Part of the, as I think about it, what the first thing we need to look at is, what does the timing coincide with the pamphlet, the requirements for the pamphlet and the ballot and things. I'm not going to give an opinion until I've had time to look at any relevant code sections.
And that's all we're saying here tonight, is this is the first time we've seen it. So why should we vote for at least 50 grand more? If you're needing time to look at it, I think we should have time to look at it too, and the clerk's saying we don't have time.
I can give you,
He could answer whether just getting it printed and mailed.
But what is our
requires
timing
some
issue,
time.
Jess?
the timing issue is that we don't have funding for this, and we have to get the funding allocated. One, because my last request was in for about a year. I'm going to be honest, my last request for the ARPA funding was in for a year, and it was denied last week, or 2 weeks ago. So I don't want to act or prepare anything for mailing or make any commitments with anyone unless the money and funding has been allocated, because we were under the impression that that was going to be approved because we had been approved to move into that building. And we had run it through budget committee and all those items. So we don't want to move forward and commit the county to anything without approval from the council. Number two, in this, it does coincide with the mailing of the ballot. But if you send out a ballot, if you send out a ballot and the law is explicit that it says you have to be able to put in postage prepaid. So then you send it with the ballot. Now, we had explored this option, but you send them together and you don't give actually enough time for people to mail it back and then us to mail you the voter information packet. So by the time potentially we send you the voter information packet, it could be a week after the election is over. So the answer is yes, you could do some of these things, but I just advise against it. You have ultimate, you could say, well, we're going to only fund it that way, and I suppose we could look at that. But I just say, think of the voter first, and what is best for the voters of Cache County and the information that they need to make a decision. That is all my office has ever been about. And so with that, I implore you, please read over the law, read this, take the time you need, but this is very time sensitive. We did not pass the bond, the council passed the bond, and so we're just saying, hey, you passed it. It's only been one meeting later that we're coming in front of you. We're not springing anything on you. You passed it, and we researched the laws and came back with the laws as you passed. So I think that's a very symbiotic relationship that we work together. That's all I have.
Question. Are we sending out a voter information packet for anything else? Or is it just going to be on this bond?
We have sent out an information packet before the primary regarding signing up for electronic ballot notifications. We did that as a way to reduce our numbers. One, to get people aware of what was upcoming and to sign up for that, and that the election was coming. But two, as a way to make sure that we were aware of who was no longer at that address, so that those would ping back to us and we would be notified so we could then send them a postcard, and if that pinged back to us, then they would be removed from, they would be made inactive on the voter roll so that they would not get a ballot if they shouldn't be receiving a ballot.
That's
So
step till now until the November election. Is there another voter information packet going out, or are we going to be sending two? Because we got to do one for this bond, and then there's going to be one for other election information.
I can look at it. We prepared.
There's where I'm trying to bring my head around to say there ought to be just one voter
You don't
information
know if we're
packet.
sending a voter information packet on the RAPS tax. Yes or no? Are we sending a voter information packet on the RAPS tax?
We
Yes or no?
will. We
Yes?
will. We will
Okay.
get you that funding request.
So why do we need to send a separate one? This cannot be included on the voter information packet that we're already sending for the RAPS tax?
This one should be separate. And if you want to go ahead and approve the RAPS one as well, I will not fight you on it because this requires an X next to, I want information returned to me. That's the way that the law is written. I don't write the laws, Paul. You do and the legislature does. All I'm saying is this requires a specific one about this actual ordinance.
So we're, on this one here, you're requesting that we send something out that then they send back requesting more information.
Correct.
Oh, okay. So we're not, this is not the information that we're going to be sending out.
You pick your choice. You have two options in front of you.
So let me clarify something really quick. We could send everybody the information about this along with the RAPS tax information, or we could spend $50,000 or $54,000 to send everybody a postcard to ask if they want that information rather than just sending it to them.
I mean, I appreciate how passionate you are about elections, Paul.
No, I'm passionate about spending 54 grand.
I don't think, from what I understood, just say that you don't send the postcard unless there's a flag that's been raised that the person that is at that address isn't active. And then you send them one more chance to identify that they are active. And if on the second time they still don't return the information, then they deem as an inactive name on that address, and so they don't get a ballot. That's what I understood it as.
You're right on the last one that we mailed out. You're exactly right. That's on our last mailer. And I'm sorry, I feel like we're getting all, let me just start over. You have an option in front of you. Take 2 weeks and consider which is best for the council and which you would prefer. Read over this. You don't have to make a decision tonight. I don't want you to feel like you have a decision tonight. I just want to work with you on whatever decision you make. We'll get you the RAPS tax information, but this isn't something that we're trying to say we want you to do. This is just something that state law requires my office to send out, and we just need guidance from the council.
I just have one question, Jess. You says it's a time-sensitive request. Do you have a date of what that might be?
We would like to have the funding, one, because our vendors want to know as soon as possible. They're already starting to put together.
But do you have a date?
I mean, if you could have it in 2 weeks, we would accept that. We'll give you all the money back that we don't use for it. We don't, if we go over, we're going to make more requests. But this is,
You don't have a specific date, though, for us, that we need this, that you need all of this?
We have not okay, so.
What day would be best for you to tell us?
Paul, why are you so hostile towards any office that?
What's the date, Jess? Barbara asked you a simple question,
Okay,
and I'm just laughing at you.
Yeah. No,
Oh, that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
okay, guys. I just want to know if you have a date. If you're not sure of a date, is there a time that you could get us a date?
Yes, I will send you an email. I just have to make sure with my vendors because they said you need to get us this information as soon as possible.
Okay,
It looks like under this law, it says that we have to send a notice out 3 weeks before the day of election.
So 3 weeks before the election is the date it's sent. There's about 50 steps that happen before that.
I know, I'm just
So-
throwing out a helpful timeline if that's what it says.
But not for funding. I want to make sure funding needs to be put into the account. One, because I want to make sure that the council will allocate the funding, and two, because we have to pay.
And what my hope is that if we put the funding in there, that it covers, that we can kill two birds with one stone, and it'll cover the information for the wraps, it'll cover the information for the bond.
That's where I'm trying to get,
Whatever.
so
We
it's all
just
in
so we
one.
combine efforts, so we don't have 50,000 here and another 50,000 for wraps, and and we start mounting all this up. We just want some efficiency, that we can just send that card out once.
I'll make a note to contact the Lieutenant Governor's office to verify that we can combine these.
Okay, very good.
That would help, so we'd know on
Can you
that.
clarify what it is we need to send out, because it's kind of confusing. I went to this law that you cited, and it says we may mail a notice printed on a postage, prepaid, pre-addressed return. Then it also says that the notice can include a website where the voter can get the information pamphlet or a phone number they can call. So I'm wondering if we have to send out a postage, prepaid, pre-addressed return envelope, or if that's optional?
So it's optional. The may refers to if you disregard the first option, which is, these options are backwards on here. So if you choose not to send the voter information packet, you may do this.
You can either send the packet itself, or you can send a postcard that says, if you want a packet, let us know and we'll send you one, or here's the website where you can read it. You can do one of those, either of those two.
Either, okay, thank you.
So John, for that clarification, then it's just what Dave Erickson said, that we're going to have to send a voter information packet on wraps. We can include this in that voter information packet, which then is option 2 on this, which means we've already built that into our budget, or we can look to see if it's been built into our budget, so we don't have to spend $54,000 to send the postcard. Is that what you just said, just for clarification?
I didn't say, all I said was, you've got to do one or the other of
Okay.
those, and that whether you can send it together with the wraps notice, I'm happy to look into that, and it sounds like Jess is going to call the lieutenant governor.
And that's all that I was asking tonight, because this is the first time I've seen it, and I was thinking, well, if we can send it all in one, just like Councilman Erickson said, we don't have to spend $54,000 to send a postcard out, which seems to be very prudent. And we should have looked into that, or we should look into that.
And just for my clarification, I don't need to look into whether you can send a voter information packet with the ballot. I'd be surprised if that's permissible.
Yeah.
That'd be okay.
I'm not going to look into that question.
Yeah.
I'm only going to look into whether the two pamphlets can be sent together.
All
Well,
right,
and it would also tie in, because we just set a public hearing for an open space bond for September 13th, right? So if we're having an open public meeting on the 13th, and then we've already said we're doing the mailing, I mean, we're almost conflicting ourselves in a manner, aren't we? I mean, yes, we voted to allow this to go before the public, but now we've got an open meeting the public can come to as well, so.
And that's all by code.
Right.
Once you vote to put that bond on the ballot, you've got to send out this voter information. You've got to hold the public hearing.
All we're trying to do is say, if we're gonna send out a information
On wraps, can we
on
send
wraps,
this with it?
why don't we combine everything we're talking about combining? And that's where we were all trying to get. So it's been summed, and that's what we all agree on, is trying to keep that for one mailing. Okay.
okay, thank you, Jess. All right, moving on to 11A, ordinance. This is consideration of action, ordinance 2023-23, William Cody Pitcher rezone. And we've had a presentation on that. And Tim, do you have additional that you want to give to us? No additional? Okay,
Well, then I move that we support planning zoning in their unanimous vote to approve ordinance 2022 or do I have to waive the rules on that one?
Yes.
Yeah, I waive the rules and approve ordinance 2022-23, William Cody Pitcher rezone.
Second that.
okay, it's been moved and seconded that we waive the rules and approve ordinance 2022-23 for the William Cody Pitcher rezone and support the Planning and Zoning Commission on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Let's look at ordinance 2022-24, Martin Bench rezone.
I just didn't mention that the planning commission was unanimous in recommending approval of this in my comments. Thank you.
On the Martin one? Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll move to waive the rules and approve ordinance 2022-24, the Martin Bench rezone.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we waive the rules and approve ordinance 2022-24, Martin Bench rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Let's look at ordinance 2022-25, the Winnie's Properties rezone.
And I move that we waive the rules and support planning and zoning for denial of ordinance 2022-25.
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we waive the rules and deny ordinance 2022-25 and supporting the planning and zoning for the Winnie's Properties rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to 2022-22, a resolution declaring that Cache County will not accept, consider, or grant any application for a property tax deferral under Utah Code 59-2-1802 before January 1st, 2025, unless required to do so by statutory amendments subsequent to the adoption of this resolution. And Diana, you're here to give us some information on that.
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and quite an active council tonight. Tonight, I'd like to present to you the resolution 2022-22. Those are lucky numbers for me, so hopefully this works out for your consideration tonight. Attorney Luthi has drafted this for us at the request of both the auditor's office and the treasurer's office, as the 2021 legislation SB 25, now codified as Utah Code Annotated 592-1802, has created an administrative nightmare for both of our offices. In addition, it would create a nightmare for our taxpayer by creating a secured loan relationship. And it is fraught with many eventualities that may trigger a tax sale on the property that they wouldn't be aware of. And both McAllister and I are very proud of the fact we've only had one tax sale in over a decade, and that was because the people were deceased and we couldn't find them. We don't feel like we should be in the business of property ownership in the county and to try to help people keep their property. So I look at this law as more of a tax loan rather than a tax deferral, as it's called. It doesn't matter what we call it, but it does matter the ramifications for the taxpayer. And we don't want to rob them of, in most cases, their most valuable asset that they've worked their whole life to acquire. So on the front end, it's a huge amount of review for me. We currently have what's called a circuit breaker or a homeowner's tax abatement. And they come to our office, we review all of their income. It's quite an intensive review every single year. And then we actually are refunded. Is it the 100% refund on circuit breaker?
Well, a percentage. There's the 20% that's matched by the county.
Yeah.
The circuit breaker portion
Is 100% refunded.
from the state.
And then we fund 20% of it. And it's true tax relief. It's an abatement. They don't owe anything on it. It relieves that burden if they qualify.
Can you remind us what the qualifications are for the circuit breaker?
Okay, so for circuit breaker, they apply by September 1st unless you give us the go-ahead to wait till November 30th. They have to have income that is below $34,807. When we 35,807. And so we lobbied the legislature during this bill that they just raise that to 45,000 because we have so many people that we can't help in the 35-8 category that are struggling. But they thought this was a better idea. So they rejected, let's just use the circuit breaker framework, and they gave us an additional $1,200 from what we had last year, right? 34 something last year, so we went to 35 this year. So it's besides just the review of, say, their income tax return or their bank statements to determine their income eligibility. With this one, we have to say, well, are you over 75? Is your income greater than 200% of what the circuit breaker is, which is 71,614, which means we are also looking at tax returns. And then in addition to that, we have to say, do you have liquid assets? So we're looking at all their savings accounts and all of their investments account to see if they have, if those equal 20 times what their prior year tax was. And then we have to see, are they less than or equal to the median residential, which in Cache County right now is around 489,000. And if they're not below that, they could have owned it for over 20 years and still be eligible. Then if they pass all of those hurdles, then we say, okay, now you qualify and you don't have to pay your taxes, but we're gonna slap a lien on your property. And then we're gonna add some tax or some interest to the tax. And then McAllister gets to track that over this, however long that drags on, but that's where that ownership is. And then besides having to track that interest on the deferred amount of taxes each year, McAllister would also, if we ever borrowed from the state fund, because they're like, oh, well, if you don't have enough money to distribute, we have a fund you can borrow from, but then you have to pay that back. So it's not like with the circuit breaker, we apply for that refund and we're refunded the circuit breaker amount. So, like I say, this deferral comes straight out of the county coffers, and when we allow tax relief, deferral of the tax shifts that burden to all of our other taxpayers. Anybody gets off the tax, like exemptions for charitable, religious, educational, they get off for circuit breaker. Now, if we add this program, that also is going to shift the burden to more of our younger population that also have their own financial challenges, which we all have, whether that be a lot of the elderly have already paid off their house. A lot of our younger residents, they still have a mortgage. They still have college debt. They still have a young family. So I'm saying the elderly have financial difficulty. The younger have financial difficulty. I don't think that elderly couple that's making 71,000 is in as much financial difficulty as a young family. But that being the case, with all of this short synopsis, this is why I'd like to propose that you pass the resolution and take advantage of the May that is in the statute, where as of now, they retroactively moved it to January 1st of this year. And then so we can May for 22, 23, 24, and in 25 it's a shall. In the meantime, we're working with the Taxpayers Association, Rusty Cannon. We're working with Lincoln Fillmore, the sponsor of the bill. We're working with our auditors group, with our treasurers group, to try to fix some of this, to say, oh, Tax Commission, you shall come up with the form. Tax Commission, you shall come up with rules so that we can have consistent administration of this across all 29 counties. Things like that, and then also the tax sale that's popped up. If you refer to the 3 pages of issues that we came up with at our UAC meeting, there are at least 6 instances that could trigger tax sale because of that lien. If they're older, they forget to apply, then are they delinquent? Then do we start the tax sale process? If one of them dies and the other one isn't 75 or older, is it then delinquent? So I'm saying there's at least 6 eventualities that we have to iron out and work on through the legislative process, so that hopefully by 2025, when we shall, that we'll have a better bill for both offices, better bill for our taxpayers. And with that, I rest, and we're open to questions, and McAllister's here to add.
Just have one quick question. First of all, thank you for sending us all this information in advance. It was very good to read through. But one question I had at the end. So this new code, 592-1802, that created a new avenue for people, correct? It did not exist prior to this. This tax deferral didn't exist for people as an option prior to this.
It expanded it.
It expanded, so it created
we had-
something new.
so we had
We had the
We had a deferral through 59-213-47 for tax sale properties.
okay.
Like if they were in trouble, and then the county has like a contract that we come up with an agreement for, so they can pay it down within, I think the council had wanted 18 months, 12 months to 18 months, and to structure in that future tax. That's the deferral we had before. This now has expanded it and put it all into this 1802 as far as calling it tax relief.
This is for council, but I have two questions. If we talk about income 45 or 35, you've got people who are working to keep their income down, so they qualify the Obamacare health insurance, right?
I guess, I've not looked into that myself.
So you've got that avenue.
Yeah, sure.
All I'm saying is income is subjective because it's earned or taxable income versus assets or something else. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And so I'm wondering how this has been applied here, which leads me to my second part.
What I can say is that this, yes, new legislation that expands and is really essentially a new kind of deferral.
It's a new kind of deferral. It's a new animal.
Has its own definitions of what you put into the calculation.
And to be
For income.
I believe so.
To be clear about the income, it's gross income that we count for property tax eligibility rather than an adjusted gross income. So they may play with their numbers for a federal program, but it's going to be a little bit different for property tax.
Because there are plays for that to qualify on the Obamacare health insurance. And also, I wonder, because if you go to Medicaid versus Medicare, you have a 5-year look back on what they do with assets. Has this been considered into this or on the bill or anything else that way?
I don't know.
There's a 3-year look back into asset transfers on this legislation.
3 years?
3 years.
Okay, that helps me understand that.
Diana?
Yes.
The idea of this is that if they meet the qualifications at age 75, right, they defer their taxes, and then when the homeowner dies, that's when the taxes get collected,
Or when they're sold.
or if it's sold.
Correct.
So is there an issue if somebody never transfers ownership or shows that their parents died or something like that? I mean, how are we gonna know that even happens?
I should add that to the list of issues that's going to be 4 pages soon.
The way this new legislation is written leaves many questions open, and it gives counties the option to not use it or make it available until 2025. And so the gist of what's being requested is, since there are so many open questions, why don't we take the option to not use this in Cache County before we're required to, and hopefully those questions will get resolved in the legislature in the meantime.
This literally creates, we become a lending institution. And there are lending institutions already set up. You know, and it's almost like a reverse mortgage.
What's quite worse.
I had a taxpayer say that to me when I explained it. It's a good analogy.
That's kind of what this is that I'm going, you know, why are we jumping into the private sector when it's the responsibility of those homeowners, it's the owners. It's their responsibility to take this on, 75 or not. It's still their responsibility, you know. And like I said, you already work with them so much on other opportunities, and I just don't see us in need, and I'm in support of this.
Well, and that's what we're trying to do is, at some point, it's going to come before the council. You're the decision. You're the Board of Equalization.
That was a fun fact I left out, Mac.
And we want you to be the one that is telling, again, you have to be, you're in control of it. And we have right now the shall or a may for 2 years. And so or 3 years. So that's what we're doing, is we're giving you and wanting decision guidance so we can, if someone comes in, we can say, we're not doing that right now because of this and D, many other things. We can show you a need analysis for Cache County, which we've done before. I can tell you There's not another county that tracks and knows when their last payment was. So as far as the treasurer, and right now, unless I die, and things that we've got, we don't need this right now. So that's what we're asking, for you to be in control. Just know what we're doing, but we're not denying help. That's very, very important. The circuit breaker is there. If there is a situation of need, you as the county have the ability, if it's in the best interest of the county, the state, and the individual.
And we have the hardship on top of that circuit breaker, that those all come to council. And that's the fun fact I left out, is that this is a legislative decision. So that means that all of the applications that come into my office get to come across to your desk also.
Craig, can you tell us, I think probably this bill was put in because of fears of older homeowners losing their homes. Is that happening in Cache County? Are older folks losing their homes or at high risk? How do you handle that? What's that situation like?
Next year, our tax sale that we're already working towards, we have 21 individuals. I can tell you that we've already talked to them. The year after that, we're 40. When we started, we had $8 million in back tax. Right now, we're at less than $500,000. I've got 199 total delinquent owners. Now, there are 70 of them that have more than one, and they play the game. There's some businesses that pay when they do off. But as far as the need analysis, again, we're working on it.
See, and some of this is actually generated from the kind of your Wasatch County, some of those 75 and older that have been in those homes forever. All of a sudden now their home values are so high and they're being taxed so high.
And that's,
Just
yeah,
because of
that's where the
they live.
Taxpayers
Salt Lake
Association
County,
got.
Utah County, I mean, a lot of them, you know, their values are even crazier than what we are up here. We're still, you know, it's hard, but I'm saying it's kind of compounded with them, so there may be more people with those fixed incomes having a hard time. But there's still other avenues that they can go through to.
Exactly.
So,
and responsibility to do.
Right.
If I could just finish one other, when this bill, we have made tremendous progress, and UAC will say that, you know, we did what the treasurers asked for. Well, remember when it was introduced, there was no income.
This was in 2021.
There were no stipulations as far as you could have any amount of income, and so we had to tighten it down. It's just not there yet, and so we just want to keep the may and shall. Let's let some dust settle, and then we move on when we have to, and hopefully it will be adjusted at a future point.
Craig, I just want to clarify that 199 potential delinquents that you mentioned, those are not all individuals 75 and older. That's everybody.
Total.
So I track, that's where we stand as of 5 o'clock today. It even tells you what's needing to come in for this year. But if you look at the bottom, I kind of use as a rule, these bottom ones have a bankruptcy protection, again, which is something we take care of. But if you look at 21, double that is the 40, double that is approximately 80. It's just a safe way of looking at those to keep your delinquency in line. And again, the total bottom line, you know, at $500,000 as opposed to $8 million is significantly different. So I don't see any.
So I guess if I'm hearing this correctly, this 59-2-1802 probably wouldn't have been run if every county had a Craig McAllister in it running the taxes. That being said, thanks so much for all that y'all do. And I would make a motion that we waive the rules and approve resolution 2022-22.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we waive the rules and approve resolution 2022-22. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Diana.
And just as a closing, I handed all of you this BOE schedule we've been working on together. I've had one change from Gina. If everybody else is okay with that, just go ahead and keep it for your reference. If you have any changes, please give it to me at the end of the meeting. I'll wait.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're now looking at resolution 2022-23 and a resolution to enter into an interlocal cooperation agreement with Nibley City Redevelopment Agency for the purpose of remittance of tax revenue to incentivize development in the agreement area. Mr. Mill.
Well, good evening, council and friends. I realize that I'm in between you and dinner down at the fairgrounds. This is a rough spot to be in. But like Diana, I'm looking at numerology, and she thought 2022 was lucky, and I get to be sequential 22-23 and -24. So imagine my good fortune. I want to acknowledge that we have, I know that the first agenda item is not North Logan City, but I still want to acknowledge that we have Mayor Lindsay Peterson in the audience and City Manager Alan Luce. So they're on deck with the next one. And for much of the...
Council know who they are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you want to give the princess wave?
Just want to make sure that they know you.
Thank you very much, Gene. I appreciate that. I did take that for granted.
Sorry,
So, no, that's good. I am going to take a...
I almost thought she was on the council.
Yeah, very good. I don't know how to segue with that for comedic purposes, and I'm going to try to take a lesson from Councilman Erickson, who reminded me a couple of meetings ago when I first was presenting these that I'm going to try to be brief. And since I just acknowledged I'm between you and dinner, you do have a proposed resolution for both of these next two items before you and for your review. I think I'd rather just answer any direct questions that you might have and see where to go from there with the conversation.
My first question, short, 30 seconds or less.
Oh, geez.
I'm timing.
The impact of these, has that all been addressed and gone through the whole process? So our auditors, taxation, so did we understand all that stuff? Has that all been addressed?
Have I explicitly gone to the auditor's office and asked them about the impact? No.
What the impact is on us?
Yes, both of these have hired outside individuals that I'm very familiar with over many years, even before my previous role. And I vouch for the integrity of the work that they do. Both of those entities are great, and I don't see any reason to doubt their metrics. That being said, as you, trying to keep this 30 seconds, all right. There's always variables, you know, when you're going out, and in each of these, it's envisioned to be well over 10 years. One's 15 and one's 25 over the length of time. So, I mean, some small variations, but I would dare say the percentage of things, it would be small. There may be some variations, but generally speaking, yes. And generally speaking, I believe both of these proposals to be a good representation of a lot of discussions with a lot of stakeholders for both of them to get to where the delivery in front of you with a proposed resolution has been a long time in the making. Both of these actually started before this position that you created and I'm in tonight representing the county. Both of these had started even before that, so well over a year and a half. And since that time, I can tell you that it's been impressive to watch the manner in which the parties interacted with one another, and there's nothing hasty about either one of these that are before your consideration tonight. Yes, Councilman?
Diana has a comment, and then I have a question.
So Sean, representing the auditor's office.
Yeah.
I was aware that they're supposed to provide us with all of their creation documents when they come up with a new project area. So I'm aware that Nibley has a new agency, that they have not informed us of any new project area that they're trying to get interlocal agreements on, or they're trying to trigger. So I'm like, so we probably need to have a look at that if it's a new project area on the Nibley. Now I know North Logan had.
Do you want to come to the microphone for the benefit of those on streaming?
No, but I will. So I am aware with North Logan, didn't you have was it Devon Mills or something that had been hired on as redevelopment? And he'd been working on an airport corridor. So I don't know if that's the one that you're going to address tonight on the North Logan. Like I say, the auditor's office has to have all the creation documentation. We work with the tax commission, and we're the ones that figure out what the the increment that they earn is going to be. In other words, what that tax that we're going to give up, that the school district is going to give up, and that the city is going to give up to make that redevelopment area work. So, thanks for your time.
Nope, thank you, I appreciate it. So she's actually describing, and thank you for that, because it's a great, educational opportunity to say, because this body will not actually be the governing agency of either of these, they'll fall into the municipalities, aka their city council will take off their city council hat, put on their RDA or CRA hat. That's forthcoming. That's not at this particular stage, but it is quickly approaching following this stage, should we decide to move forward. So thank you very much for that, Diana. Councilman Gunno?
So when we do a rezone, and this is almost like that, I mean, we're putting this property under a different type of thing. We notify property owners and everybody around within a certain mile, and those are stakeholders as well. Do we know of anybody who is near this that is upset about it, that are landowners adjacent to it? Are they aware of it? Are they vetted? Everybody's been talked to on that.
Yeah, it's a great question. To the North Logan City one, not a soul that I'm aware of, and I would look over there to see if on the next agenda item.
Around that have been notified and talked to us, right?
I have to defer to the city on.
Was that within 300 feet of, or how does your definition go?
The buffer distance, but we did have to send it to every single property owner.
Okay.
As it pertains to as it pertains to the Maloof or Nibley City, there's a northern parcel of about 55 acres. That gentleman's name escapes me at this moment, but I should know it and have it memorized and etched on my memory. Golly gee, I wish I had that right this second.
It's north of the Maloof facility?
Yeah.
Harry Hansen or Marv Hansen?
No,
directly north.
not Hanson. It's there.
Separate a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that the piece we talked
The
about last time?
Nelson? Is it Nelson? Is it the Wesley Nelson?
No.
This
Oh
is
my
the
gosh,
piece
it's
we talked
right
about
on.
before that
Yes.
Was going to be used in some manner, correct?
Yes, as part of a retail opportunity or a retail portion of.
Type thing.
And it's actually fairly important to this as it pertains to the school district's participation, because in a novel way to bring the school board on board, the Maloof CRA envisions giving that, doesn't envision, it agrees to giving them a portion of retail sales tax collection back in a way that for a school district becomes unencumbered and full discretionary. So it's a good way and the reason why they've agreed to this, because their motivations are very different than most of like a councilor, a mayor, county commission, city council, mayor. It's not uncommon for these types of positions to run on job creation and capital expenditures that increase your property tax revenues, but most school board members don't. And so if not for the but-for clause that Maloof is a great example of, but for the kind of development that's happening in this area and certainly being proposed for the headquarters building, the county and other taxing entities would get a far less value of property taxes. And so the school district, as you likely know, so for the benefit of those following along at home, they don't receive any benefit from sales and use tax like cities and counties in the state do. So the way that this deal is envisioned is that subject property, whose name I cannot remember right now, he had come forward during one of the Nibley meetings and just expressed some concern, his desire that he could participate in the what if of his development at some future point. And it was expressed by both the city and myself acting as your agent that he is not precluded from being able to benefit in this CRA as it envisions making some capital improvements, but that will be left for his need to discuss directly with the Nibley agency. What kind of benefit would he bring to the municipality, right? Like Maloof is going to upsize road, water, sewer, and other opportunities that will help add taxable value, not only to their land, and part of their deal also envisions some public space that could benefit the citizens at large. In a similar fashion, without saying too much or getting ahead, because it's all conjecture at this point, that same gentleman has the opportunity. And so he realizes that he has that opportunity, but I can't tell you the degree to which he's fully explored his options yet. And I'm obviously trying to be quite polite in how I'm saying there's room for additional discussions on that one. But he was not in opposition to it.
Okay, that helps.
Okay.
other questions?
All
Okay,
right.
just as just for council, I'm sorry, I need to leave in about 5 minutes because I have an appointment at 7:30. So if I get up and leave, Mr. Borup will be in charge here.
So we better finish this in 5 minutes. That's what she's saying.
Will you save us a line in the banquet? Is
That's
that
not-
where you're headed?
That's not where I'm headed, no.
So Sean,
Well-
to Diana's question,
Yeah.
this isn't premature for us to approve this.
No. It would be premature for us to expect that we have that data, that agency, again, the way that this will work for you, just as it will for the school district, is you're deferring, once you agree, you're deferring to that city council, take off their city council hat and put on their agency hat. That's all about redevelopment or capturing tax increment, right? And you're deferring to them under the structure of these agreements that they will have their prudence and judgment to say, okay, we're going to execute. And as they move and as they record those documents, they will work with the county auditor to make sure the county auditor's office will know exactly what that pro forma looks like. Meaning, as they collect these taxes, as build-out happens, how the county will retain its portion and divvy out the portion that's due to the agency to oversee as restricted funds. So that's forthcoming. We're not premature, and I really appreciate that she brought that up because there is still quite a bit more to the process.
Well, having been on the agency side of several of these things, to move the process along, I'd make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022-23 and 2022-24 to enter into these two interlocal cooperation agreements.
So did you waive the rules?
Waive the rules.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's been a resolution that we waive the rules and approve resolution 2022-23 and resolution 2022-24. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Thank you very much, council. Much appreciated.
Thank you. All right. Going on to other business, and I think I will let Vice Chair Borup
Take care
take
of this,
over,
Barbara.
please.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much, everyone.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm assuming we'll just burn through these really quick. Cache County Fair and Rodeo, everybody's pretty aware of that. Thanks to Lamont, thanks to Lane, thanks to all of the folks that are involved in the Fair and Rodeo. It's the jewel of, I'd say, Utah's fairs.
I'd like to make a comment.
Please do.
I was very unhappy when they pulled the council having an opportunity to get a couple of free passes to the rodeo. It's like all of a sudden we lost our influences heading the council. It's now being headed by the rodeo committee. I wasn't happy. I don't know if anyone else felt that way, but I just wanted to express my unhappiness.
No.
You may have got one and you had to pay for one.
I think I ran out of gas.
Yeah.
Bought one, got one free.
Were they free last year?
They've been free for ever. This is the first year that they've cut you out.
Well, I paid for mine last year, so I don't know about that stuff, so.
Okay.
Then I agreed with Gordon. We missed a free one, so.
Okay, well, we will note that. If we can get out of here, we'll go complain directly. We talked about the Ignite the Light Suicide Awareness Night. Thanks again to the folks down there at the fairgrounds that have put that on. That was one of those that was kind of the bottom up that came from county employees, and we so appreciate them and their efforts into that. So thank you. Summer Social, we're still on for that, Carl?
Still on. The only thing
Sorry, you're not going to be there.
I'm sorry, I'm going to miss that.
I would ask the ladies of our council if they would plan to bring a dessert, and us men will help clean up. Other than that,
Okay.
What did you say?
if the ladies would bring a dessert, because when you do a shrimp boil, everything else is in the pot.
Okay.
I will be missing that as well.
Aw,
Nolan's
I was
gone.
hoping to light you up real good.
Well, I'm glad you said we're cleanup. That's pretty much the only thing I'm qualified for is janitorial. And even that's pretty sketchy. River Heights, Barbara and the executive, neither one of them are here. Is anybody else wanting to go to the River Heights Apple Dates?
I'll be gone for that one too.
Okay. And nice to see the employee summer party, September 1st, 6 p.m. Are we going to be cooking or anything? I know.
I think it would follow the same format the last few years, so they may have you help at different stations like drinks or.
Food trucks and hand out drinks and things.
Yeah, it's, HR does that now, so.
Are they planning on?
We could cook. That was so
again?
fun when we could cook.
Okay.
It was fun.
And
We don't
nobody
have-
even got
We
food
don't have
poisoning.
John here anymore.
Oh, that's true.
So basically, we're just looking for Amy to give us our marching orders when we go there. Okay. Wellsville Founder's Day Parade.
Woo-hoo, man.
Yes, we'll be there.
Okay.
Planning on it.
We assigned all of you up to be in the sham battle, so plan on coming with your pioneer garb.
Can I get killed pretty quick in that and just go sit under a shade tree?
You gotta have your double barrel shotgun, but with flanks.
Okay, the USAC Fall Conference, we have anybody attending that? Gina is going to attend that because you're needing kind of a head count, right, Janine?
Yeah, I intend to be there.
Okay. Carl?
That's gonna be fun to be down at Bryce Canyon. So it's a new venue rather than up in.
So Gina and Carl said it.
I'm out of the, I'm gone. I want to be to that, but even that board meeting.
Is
I
that
would
where
be
you're
able
gonna
to-
be in, you're gonna
Yeah,
be
I'm
down
going
fishing?
Fishing.
I'm going fishing too, but I think you're a week after I am.
Okay. And a little bit of a wistful moment here, something that our former county executive, Craig Butters, started, the Cash, Cheese, and Dairy Festival. That, we don't have any official duties there, we just need to show up and
Just need to be there and eat.
enjoy some cheese.
It was very well attended last year.
Yeah, thanks to Craig for doing that. And then the USU Homecoming Parade. Anybody on that list that isn't going to be there or wants to,
Can I
that
make a
survived?
comment on that?
Please.
I did talk to Chief Rod.
Did ya?
Hammer,
Oh, good.
And he says he has a fire truck that we can be on, and he'll supply the
Fantastic.
driver. And I invited him to come with us, because why not? And so I did ask Janine if she'll get him a magnet with his name on, so.
We need that during the hot summer parades.
We do, we need one that has
Full of
water.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Okay.
so he said he would do that, so I just needed to let him know the date and the time.
Oh, that'll be fun. Thanks, Gina.
You bet.
Perfect. Sit in there and honk the horn as we go down the street.
That's what I want to do.
Okay. Well, council members' reports. Carl?
The only thing I have is that I won't be here for our next meeting. So
Miss you.
carry on without me.
Okay. Gina?
Since we talked about doing stuff with wraps, I've been talking with, I've reached out to USU, and I've also talked to Amy Anderson, my friend on the city council. We're working together to try to get some numbers to see if we can't move fireworks back to the stadium next year. I just want to give you a heads up with that hopefully that she and I can put a proposal together to bring to council. I think Logan City will do it if the county can be more an equal partner in funding. I know that there's been a petition out there from people, they want to see this happen, and I think it'd be a great spot if we could get it back up there. So I just want to give you a heads up that I've been reaching out, trying to figure out how to make that happen for us to
I
consider.
mentioned it to Holly, and she's in favor of it too.
Okay. Well, thank you for spearheading that, and Gina and Carl, and for Amy over on the city council, and for Mayor Daines as well. I think the RAPS tax is a good place for that type of a thing. So thank you to all those. Nolan?
Two things. Dave Barban and I went to a waste management meeting. Have you heard anything new on that? I mean, we talked about having something with, Mayor Lindsay's here. I was going to ask her about that because Logan proffered a 3-year extension if we can come up with something. So
I can give a little update on two fronts there. Barbara and David have both talked with Holly Danes about that, and they have proffered that 3-year extension. Their primary contingency on that would be that the legislation
Older bill, which
changed.
Yeah.
We're waiting to get a draft of a memorandum of understanding from the Logan City Attorney's Office that would have their full terms, and anticipate getting that this week. I'm meeting with their attorney on Thursday.
So I think there's been some mayors who were kind of succeeding out of the RFP
That's the other thing
issue.
that
That's why I thought we should have some kind of meeting
Mayor
on that.
Mayor Peterson is trying to set up a meeting for this Thursday afternoon for the mayors that have not pulled out from the RFP, and for David as well too. She sent out an email on that during the meeting here, and I was copied on that. So.
Okay.
So did you say there's some mayors who've pulled out of the RFP?
That's my understanding.
Apparently Smithfield, Richmond, and one other. I can look back at her email.
But the point that was brought out to us, all of us who have participated in the old landfill and the new landfill are under a liability clause, should anything happen in that. So it's like, why go out and start another landfill, because then there's a third liability sitting under there.
Wherever your waste has gone.
Yes.
There's some liability that goes with your waste for so many years.
Smithfield, Lewiston, and Richmond apparently have pulled out the RFP. I don't know.
And then, I know this has been brought up before, but as I see Paul, Gordon, and Gina leave, I'm looking forward to next year. No, I'm not looking forward to next year. I'm looking into next year, saying it worries me. I hope as a council we think about, because you guys who've been chair have been busy as ever, and I think it's even getting worse, that we have somebody as a full-time person from the council to help the chair and help the council in future endeavors. So I don't know if anybody's with that, but I certainly am, and I just think it would help us be more informed.
I would wholeheartedly support that.
Council needs help. That sounds bad. That sounds like mental health, but there's so much information going and coming, and
So
it's a lot to do for a part-time council.
it ought to be a discussion or something on that, so.
I'll make sure that gets
What's the fancy
added.
name now for it, though? It's got a fancy title.
Policy advisor.
Policy advisor.
That's what it is for the Salt Lake County Council, and Utah County Commissioners also have policy advisors.
Thank
That's
you.
all I
No, and I will talk to Barbara, make sure we get that added as a, either agenda item or a workshop or something like that. Gordon?
Nothing other than I'm looking forward to the county fair. Hope to see you all down there. I don't want any of you to say, I don't know why we have the fair, I don't know why we have animals. We all get our food from the grocery store. I think all the rest of you should. So come down and be educated of where the real food comes from.
Doesn't chocolate milk come from brown cows?
It does.
Okay,
And
see, I knew that.
strawberry milk comes right at the first of lactations too.
Bloody mouth.
Wow, I learned something today as a city girl.
Could have been in the paper again.
They very said it, not me.
This other stuff is just fluff.
I love all.
Not sure where banana milk comes from.
But it's good, it's good. There we go.
Let's
Dave.
stop there.
I just have one question, and maybe this would be more towards John, but I have been asked, and from some people within patrons that we have, that what is the policy of, I don't know what they call it, ghosting your name on parcels?
I'm not familiar
In other
with
words,
that.
your name will not show up on a parcel number?
Oh. Yeah.
Is that,
There is.
does anyone do that?
No, there's state code that allows, for example, law enforcement, judges, and others who are at higher risk of harm if somebody knows where they live.
Who
And
determines that risk?
it's set out in state code. And we, as a county, should be providing a form and assistance for those that are eligible to be able to take their name off in the recorder's
So our
office.
Supreme Court guy did
Has
goes
been-
to his property, huh?
Has been helpful when people have wanted to do that. We could, I don't know that there is a form, and I think that we are supposed to have a specific form, so we could look into helping the recorder's office prepare a specific form to do that.
Isn't it just law enforcement? Can you check on that for us?
It includes attorneys, it includes judges.
Well, I guess that would be law enforcement. But I mean, can it be, like, can I go do it? Can Carl go do it?
It's been long enough since I've looked, I don't remember.
Can, so as elected officials, we can't?
Pretty important, but not important enough.
Really? But I got a free ticket. So anyway.
Weaver County,
You had to
so far,
pay for
they
one.
don't even send a tax notice to those folks.
Really? So if you don't have your name on a parcel, you won't get a tax notice?
So then delinquency and all the rest of the ramifications.
Wow, that's interesting.
Anyway,
You still have
I've been asked about that.
Yeah, I mean, you still gotta pay, you just don't get the note, yeah.
By people. So, okay, that's the only thing, I just had a question. I knew there was some sort of policy somewhere, so thank you.
And I do not have anything, and so we're a little bit late, but I'll be fashionable if we get there. So with that, we're adjourned.